Want to thank everybody who's watching today. We have another What's Your Angle podcast, and today we have Emerson Smith on the podcast. Uh, Emerson is a really really successful guy. He's built the company Pushnami. It's been one of the fastest growing companies, first in Austin, then in all of Texas, and I think nationally now you guys are ranked. It's been really impressive to watch. And Emerson is what I would say an expert on just all things business and specifically technology. Specifically AI. That's not necessarily what they focus on, but he's very well versed in it. And then I was very surprised as we got to know each other better at just how much culture has played a role in Pushnami's success. So, Emerson, really excited for you to be here. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And you're both businessmen that I respect a lot. So I'm happy to give my story and help however I can.
It's awesome to have you, man.
Thanks, man.
So Max, how did you guys meet? You guys have known each other for a long time, and I know it's one of those things. You guys are friends, and then you it seems like both of your businesses sort of have had a similar growth trajectory at a similar timeline almost.
Yeah, so we met in college. Emerson was fraternity brothers with a bunch of my friends from Galveston that I've known my whole life. Is really how we met, and just like that group of friends, we have a lot of the same interests, extracurriculars, movies, music, that kind of thing. And gosh, I mean, I think it's been 20 years or so. It's been really interesting. I don't know if you know this, Eric, but Emerson had one company before that he started in New York, moved on from that, and then to watch. It's been very interesting and pretty awesome for me to watch. Emerson, you sold out of that other company, had an idea that I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on. Exactly what is Pushnami, what y'all do. I know the joke for a long time was nobody knows what you do, but I think it's fascinating. You built a company, you got out, you're sitting at home, you have this idea, and now to watch you go from I'm going to go rent this office with no employees, and I have this great kind of idea of what I can do with this thing, to see where you've come in such a short amount of time is really impressive. Talk about that a little bit. What were you doing before, and how did you come up with this, and what are y'all really doing now?
Yeah, well, look, yes, I've known Max for over 20 years. And I appreciate all those kind words, gentlemen. Max was quite the entrepreneur when I was in college because he wasn't going to school. He was playing cell phones and making much more money than everyone else. So I wish I had done that, actually. I wish I would have just dropped out of college and gone to work. I did not get a lot out of UT other than having a really good time. So
oddly enough, they will let you be a part of the fraternity if you're not going to UT. They just won't. They won't initiate you on initiation night. They will skip you.
I'm fairly certain as long as you pay your dues, you're fine after you get in. So, let's see. I did want to share a funny story about Max before we get into that, and I thought about it because I have so many now after all these years. I do recall the F the neighbor lady incident, though, which I believe, we talked about putting on a shirt from time to time. Max used to host. He doesn't do it anymore because he doesn't want to mess up his fancy house. But
also, my wife banned me from doing it.
Correct. I wasn't going to. You did that. But he used to host these really massive crawfish boils every year, and they were a lot of fun. There'd be a band, and everybody get real crazy. Like, I think there's been like bounce houses before that adults use. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, the neighbor was a lady that was like causing a problem, like complaining and stuff like that. And he got on the mic and made everyone at the same time say "F the neighbor lady," in a nice way. So I always like that. I use that phrase still personally. But
one of my lesser professional moments.
Yeah. Also,
What's funny about that is I found out later it wasn't the neighbor lady that we thought it was. It was actually the lady behind us and not the lady next to us.
Neighbor lady.
Well, the next year, the lady next to us came over and had a great time. And the lady behind us moved.
Oh, that's great. And then I really enjoyed getting to know Eric as well. He's taken me on several adventures, including my first like adult 40-year-old crisis bicycling adventures, where you put on the pants and everything, and then rock climbing where I hurt myself badly for a year because I haven't rock climbed since. But thank you, Eric. That's been wonderful. So all that aside, let's see where to start after UT. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I didn't think I was going to be. I thought I was going to be an investment banker. I didn't even know what that was. I just knew they made a lot of money and you're in college and you're like, yeah, I'm an investment banker. But, graduating from a state university with a 2.2 GPA post 9/11 is not going to get you very far in the finance world, I came to find. So
if it makes you feel better, I have a 1.75 at community college.
It does. It actually does.
Where you screwed up was you should have gone to OU. I graduated with a 3.5. So you just got to get the bar a little lower, and it's easier to make yourself look pretty good. So
yeah, I didn't quite think that one through, but whatever. I was always very good at computers. And back in my day, nobody had laptops; they had desktops, and they would break, and I would fix them for people. I could take apart a computer, I could diagnose problems. So I was constantly being inundated. Even to this day, my family uses me like tech support constantly. Like my wife's grandmother is asking me why AOL isn't working. I was because all their members are literally dead, Grandma. And I also I took a horrible job at a place at UT that was called the Annual Fund, and you called alumni to try and get them to give money to the school. And I did that job, which I did not think was very hard, but I was the number one call rep there. I raised more money than anybody, which didn't compensate me any better, but whatever. And so I knew I had, ability to do sales and computers. So I thought about that. And back in the early 2000s, getting into technology was not that hard. You could throw a rock against the wall. So I kind of started getting into that. I worked for a company here in Austin that was horrible. And they paid me just 50% commission. There was no money. It was like working for myself. And I started doing really good with like these data deals where I would have companies and broker these data deals with them so they could acquire large swaths of consumer information. This was before there were any rules about this kind of thing. It was perfectly legal. The same way that like it's weird to think of that, like used to, you would just have the white pages, which was a book of everybody's information readily available. It just wasn't easy to digitally absorb that yet, and that happened real fast in the early 2000s. Those all went away. And I started making a lot of money at the time. I made like a $5,000 data deal, and I told the company that they need to make me a partner when I was 22, and they're like, no, rightly so. And a friend of mine had moved to Manhattan and he needed a roommate. I started thinking about it and I just said, screw it. And I took my laptop and a few $1,000 and I moved to Manhattan and started my first tech company called Ice Water Media out of my apartment in the East Village. And New York is great. All the cliches about it are all true. Everyone works extremely hard there. They need to pay their rent. It's expensive. There's a lot of type A aggressive personalities. And so it really was like going to school of hard knocks. I had no mentorship. I went out there, made money, was swindled, lost, made, and had a great time for 6 years. And then I came back to visit some friends in Austin and fell in love with the city for completely different reasons, like a lot of people do. And I'm just like, why? Why am I staying in Manhattan? It's cold. Everyone's pissed off and it's so expensive, So I moved back here, and then a client of mine, that was a good client. I started working more with them, and they brought me on as an equal partner. And that was an ESP or email service provider. And I led that company for about 7 years, maybe 8 years. And that was a different experience in that becoming part of a more mature company, having partners. We had an investor. And what that was like, but we did have problems where all three partners, nobody wanted the other person to be in charge. So we did not have a CEO. We had myself as a COO. We had a chief revenue and a CTO, and this wasn't working very well. So my wife was pregnant with my first child. I have three now, for the love of God. Um, and she turned to me one night and was like, "You've got to quit your job." And I said to her, "Look, I've just spent the last 8 years building this company. We're about to have our first baby. I can't quit." And she said, "I've never seen you so unhappy. And this is supposed to be the best time in our life." And so I thought about that all night long. I went in the next day and I said, "Look, guys, this is happening. I'm leaving. I got the partner on the phone, or the investor on the phone, and I'm going to train my replacement. You guys can keep everything, but I'm going." Um, and so I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I always had an idea for a company and culture that I really wanted to try after I'd been in this industry and done it multiple times. You know, as you get into your 30s and you're more confident and that sort of thing, that was really focused on positivity, acceptance, using our success to make an impact on ourselves, families, the environment around us, but also show people you don't have to do it the typical Silicon Valley or New York or now Austin way, which is you are a smart person in technology, you have a great idea, and then you sell your soul to a VC or private equity who doesn't care about you or the employees. Now, look, it's certainly no disrespect to anybody that does that. It's a great model, and if you need money or if I needed to acquire something, it's something we would look into. I'm just saying what I wanted to try in this business and keep nobody out. So I had some consumer facing websites. In the summer of 2000, I got my first browser based push notification from Facebook. And so I was on Facebook. This little notification box came up and I clicked allow and I didn't think about it. And then the next day, a notification came up on the bottom right hand of my screen and I wasn't on Facebook. So coming from an email world, I was just amazed by this technology. I was like, so they click allow once, you can send whatever you want. Like, this is amazing compared to email, which we've all dealt with. There's so many problems and deliverability, blah blah blah. Is it actually that person? So long story short, I looked to see that technology was on the market. It was not, and well, I'm not a developer. I understand technology really well, and I can architect and productize things. So I architected this and I put it on a website called Guru.com, which is like eBay for developers. And I found a person out of Canada that could develop it. It took me and this person 2 months, and we turned it live. And we saw a 30% boost in productivity on all three of the websites that I own, which is revenue in my world. And clients started using it. And I said, that's it. We're productizing Pushnami January 1st, 2017. And the rest, as they say, is history. We now power 10,000 websites globally. We deliver over 1 billion notifications a day, which blows my mind at this point.
It's so crazy because I remember when you got to we were actually we were on a trip in BVI and you were just getting to your first billion. And that was a big deal. And you had your counter and there was a part. I mean, and now you're doing a day.
I can still remember taking the picture in front of the counter with like the 6 people I was working with. And we were so excited that we did that. It was crazy that we had gotten that far. And now it's just another day. And that's truly how technology is, like that's how it grows sometimes.
We've joked in the past that you have a hard time explaining to others what exactly it is you do, right? And that's because I think that people subconsciously click allow and then they start being delivered these messages. So what I wanted to ask you is to put this in more like kind of, 1 billion messages a day is obviously mind boggling. I think people have a hard time understanding exactly how many a billion, really is versus a million or whatnot. But tell us about your company growth. So, I know you were ABJ Fast 50 #1 in 2020 with something like 2,000% growth in the $10 million plus category. So you've taken this isn't just some sort of, tech piece that's not moving the needle at all. I mean, you guys are turning this into real revenue for your customers. So sorry. So tell us about your growth. I mean, you've grown a ton up to 2020 and beyond. What are some of the impressive numbers you guys have?
Yeah. So, we did 1 million the first year, for the second, 10, the third, all the way up to last year. I believe we went above 60 million in sales. And so
Congrats.
Thank you. It's been an amazing experience. The thing we did is we started showing people that at least have high volume websites using push technology is a requirement to stay competitive. Just like you could build a website and not do email, but you would be at such a disadvantage. So if you are not doing this, your competitor is. But also the fact that it is a new technology, particularly compared to email. A lot of people are very familiar with email now, but even then, they struggle with finding someone at their company to run this or manage it effectively. So when we got in the third year to our 1,000th website, I started realizing that we should invest very heavily into machine learning. This is before the AI thing happened, but machine learning was becoming a thing. And this allowed us to optimize and manage and help our clients at scale without adding a lot of human beings. Because at 1,000 websites, even if I had a team of 100 human beings working every day, they'd never be able to get to every single website weekly or much less daily. So machine learning allowed us to offer solutions at a much larger scale and allowed us to get to 10,000 websites, again, without adding things. And so when we work on that machine learning solution, we're working on one solution that effectively increases the productivity of all of our clients and then release it outward that way.
So is there a difference? So you talk about machine learning, and that's really kind of before AI. So, and right now AI is all the rage. What's the difference between machine learning and AI?
Yeah. Machine learning allows you to analyze data at a large scale and then provide solutions or get information out of it. So, it's still data scientists involved, that kind of thing. So, for example, if we sent a billion notifications yesterday, how do you analyze that data about what delivered, what clicked, what time of day? All those kind of things can be plugged into machine learning, who will come up, or it will come up with solutions if used effectively, that says, oh, you should be sending at the afternoon rather than the morning to these particular people. And so it allows us to treat every individual as a decision of when to send them, what to send them, how to send them, by using the entire database's worth of things. So these are things that, again, humans cannot do this. There's no amount of analysis if you're trying to get down to an individual. So machine learning has been very helpful with that, with organizing your data in order to make smart decisions. Okay.
So I was talking to a company that their deal was, we can help you target when somebody's moving and when they might need a mortgage and
Yes.
all of these things. But as I'm talking, they kept saying we use AI, proprietary algorithms, all of this. And I'm listening to the guy talk, and what it sounded to me like was all you're doing is taking a spreadsheet and you're putting this information in a spreadsheet. It sounds like they're using the term AI as like, this is how I'm going to sell it to you. But it didn't really seem to me that it was artificial intelligence. It seemed more of this machine learning aspect. Do you think that, I see you nodding your head yes, do you think are a lot of companies doing that and repurposing the term machine learning to AI as clickbait, sales, all of that?
I'd say 90% of the companies out there that are saying either machine learning or AI are full of crap. Yeah. They are not doing either one of those things. They're using an algorithm. That's the keyword. You just said an algorithm. Basically, it's just an algebraic equation that anybody with 8th grade math can probably come up with. And those work really well too. I don't want to fool people. A lot of people think that like machine learning and especially AI is a magic bullet, and it's not. Human beings are still very difficult to beat, and as far as intuition and understanding. So, a lot of companies are still very successful using human data analysts to go ahead and manually make decisions versus machine learning. Machine learning is hard, and AI is much harder to get right. But yeah, I think machine learning definitely before AI was being used all over the place. And I would constantly call companies out like, that's not machine learning. That's just an algorithm. If you want to call it machine learning because it makes you feel good or helps you sell your product, go right ahead. Same thing with AI. A lot of people are saying that kind of thing is not AI.
It reminds me a lot. Years ago, I think 2006, 2007, I dove into SEO really, really hard. That was whenever that was a big rage. Like, how do you get to the top of the search engine? And whenever I spoke with a lot of vendors, they would construct this black box, right, with SEO, and they wouldn't ever tell you how it worked. They just said, no, these are our techniques. We'll get you amazing results, right? So this is what you need to pay me, goes into the magic black box, amazing results come out at the other end, but I can't explain to you how it works because either you're not smart enough or it's too complex or something like that. And it's what a lot of these vendors remind me of right now. If you use our product, which has a magic AI black box, then money's going to come out on the other end of it. Can't explain to you how, but if you just pay me enough, you'll see the magic work.
Yeah, I see that too. I'm always highly suspect of that. If you really had SEO figured out where you could just magically make it go, I don't think you would give it out to anybody. I think you would keep it and make hundreds of millions of dollars personally. But there is certainly checklists that people can go through. I often find it's not some amazing technological solution though. They're just like doing the right things you're supposed to do. And maybe they have a few secret sauce tricks, all good, and certainly charge for those services, but I'm always suspect of those things.
Yeah. Super interesting. I mean, you have so much data in front of you, and I can see why machine learning is absolutely necessary. Like you said, there aren't probably human beings on Earth to optimize the track that you guys have. How to make it relevant to, say, an agent or an LO? How much data do you have to have? I mean, at what point do you start caring about machine learning? At what point do you start caring about AI?
Yeah, you have to give machine learning a lot of data to make it make really good decisions. Otherwise, algorithms are going to be just fine, or even intuition. If it's 100 records, you're almost better served just to look at yourself and what can you extract from that or test, right? But I think when you start getting above 10,000 data points, you could particularly do it. The important thing, though, is not only to have that data, but to have fresh data coming in that's constantly being absorbed and training the model, as it's put, so you can make the best decisions as quickly as possible. So right now, we train 6 times a day at our company, and that's expensive to do. We used to only train once a week, and then we got down to a day. But training a model is expensive too, at scale. It requires a lot of electricity at the end of the day. So I'd say 10,000 is a good starting point if you're getting a good amount of data coming in constantly.
So you have 10,000 records, and then just to make it applicable, I have 10,000 people that I know have registered on a website or something like that. What data do I need to see coming in and refreshing in order to make it relevant for machine learning?
That's a really good question. And one of the reasons machine learning can be helpful is you should try to give it everything you possibly can. I know it's counterintuitive to think, well, why don't I just get 10 really good metrics that I know that matter and feed that in there? But with machine learning, that's the amazing part. It could be 174 metrics and put it in there. And let's just see what it comes out with, and maybe it can extract something that you're not quite understanding. And again, I mean, analyzing 10,000 records with 174 data points is impossible for a human to do. It's just too much to go on, or it takes an exorbitant amount of time.
And are you putting all this record when you're analyzing this data? Are these systems that you've purchased? Is this systems that you've built out internally? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, we're cloud-based for sure. And that has helped. This company, all my other companies, I had a massive server in like a place like Chicago, because it's centrally located, where you literally had to go get your hand scanned and go in there. And when it would break, we would lose our minds and be screaming at some poor dude in Chicago, like, I'm going to come there and kill you if you don't fix this now. This company, I decided to only use 21st century technology. So we're 100% in the cloud, which everybody's doing now. We use really modern technology. So before I would use things like PHP and SQL, which were traditionally thought, but those cannot handle what we do now. We use things like Redshift, Go, Mongo. These are called NoSQL databases. And the amazing thing about that, to put it more in a layman's term, is we think about databases like rows, and you have all these rows, right? And that's the SQL model, where it works really good. But now that you're getting into big data we're in 2024 now. It's not early 2000s. Big data is big. They cannot handle that. And so with something like NoSQL, you'd have to think of it more as like every single record is its own Word document. And you can put unlimited information in that Word document and it grows, but it doesn't slow down either. You can put all of these Word documents together and it can move in and out really fast. Again, we're going to hit the limits of my technological understanding at a certain point, but I can tell you things like that in the cloud can go. The only ancillary we're seeing is that, like, as we get bigger and we have all this data, US prices are actually starting to factor in our decisions now. And, there's a reason why Jeff Bezos is one of the richest men in the world. To pivot on that and hit that, companies like mine are very much ingrained in AWS. It'd be hard to leave at this point. So they can raise prices. Good for them.
And he can file to sell $2.5 billion worth of stock.
Yeah, or, sell that yacht around with his new wife and just live whatever kind of life he's living.
I'll deviate for a second on this because it's really relevant to you and me, Max. Like, did you guys see he just set up permanent residency in Miami for this sale?
No, I didn't, because of tax.
Sale and the tax reasons. That's honestly what's driving. If you want to look at like what's the biggest impact to Austin real estate, it's that we're a tax shelter. So when you see like Joe Rogan move to Austin, it's because he had a $100 million Spotify deal and he set up residency, saved $15 million on his taxes. And you're going to continue to see a lot of these high net worth individuals choose between Texas, choose between Florida. It's pretty easy to pick Austin if you decide Texas, if you're moving to Florida. So that's kind of what's driving our local market. Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent, but I saw that the other day that he was setting up permanent residency there. And I said, of course he is. I would do the exact same thing. Not that I would ever be in a situation, but it just makes perfect sense. So,
yeah.
This is all for our gain. I don't know what Delaware, New York, or California is thinking right now, but if they think in the long run that this is going to help them, I think they're going to be sorely mistaken.
California is the only state that's going to be okay, and that's just because of its natural beauty. Like, there's a million reasons to love California. Yeah, and most of these. Sorry to keep on the topic, but most of these high net worth people, you have to stay in Austin or wherever for 6 months and a day. Well, it just so happens Austin's pretty freaking nice for 6 months and a day out of the year, and then you just go back to California, and that's where you live the rest of the year. So, anyway,
it's interesting too. At a previous company I worked at, one of the executive teams, one of the guys on the executive team actually lived in Nevada and set up residence there full time, and also had a room at Hotel Irvine in Tuscan that. Like, it was his room. He stayed there. He'd go in Monday morning and he'd check out Thursday afternoon and he'd go back home and then he'd come back and he that's what he did. So anyway, thought that was interesting. But Emerson, when we talk about AI, when we talk about AI specifically, you get into that, and like we said earlier, it's a big buzz and it's all the rage and no one really knows what it means. How is this, as you look over the next 10 years, how is AI really going to impact our personal lives, jobs, workforce? I know in my business, there's programs out there now where people say AI is going to be able to replace the loan officer. And to your point of having intuition and still having to make human decisions, I'll argue against that all day. But when we look kind of more broadly at it, like, what do you think that looks like? How are we impacted by that?
My experience is it's going to be someplace in between everyone's worst nightmare and everybody's Shangri-La, of what AI is going to bring. I can tell you from my personal experience, though, this is going to happen. And it's very similar to my experience with like remote work. You can sit up there and scream that like AI is never going to replace a human, or you can sit up there and scream like we're coming back to the office. But you're going to find it's going to be real tough out there. And a lot of people are going to go in this direction. And so the ones that win lean in to the acceptance that this is happening. And so I've certainly done that. And AI is starting to get really helpful for my business. Let's say machine learning is really good at analyzing all the data. All right. Like ChatGPT is not going to be a good solution, at least right now, to say, hey, here's 1 billion records. Tell me what this means. It doesn't. Machine learning is good for this. Now, if we're telling it though, hey, I don't want human beings to write my advertising creative anymore. And here is all the best advertising creative that we've had. Write me new advertising creative every day. AI is going to crush that. And it's getting better every week. I mean, lights out good. The images are getting better. The video thing is scary as hell, how good that's moving. And so there is definitely going to be a lot of people that find they do not have a job, and it's going to come faster than everyone thinks. I think 2 years time, you're going to see it. Already right now, you're seeing it across the board with copyright. Okay. That's a great job. It's a hard job. I'm just saying, if you have to write 10 pieces of content every week on traveling to Oklahoma, okay, as a human being, it doesn't matter how great a writer you are, or how passionate you even are about it, you're going to blow your brains out, with, for lack of a better thing, but you're not going to be able to do it. After a few weeks, it's just, you're going to be like, this is mind numbing. I cannot do it. AI is not going to get tired, and it is happy to keep writing on the subject over and over and learning what consumers want and putting fresh ideas and things like that. Is not going to get tired. So an entire company that did nothing but ghostwriting and copywriting in Austin has already melted down. So this is 200 people without a job. And you're going to see that graphics designers, I think, are going to really be in a run for their money as it gets better. And, you know, we've all experimented with it. Like, you just tell it more and more what you want, and it does a pretty good job. Like, I'm starting to see 5 fingers now on people's hands. So, like,
you know what I'm excited about that I think is probably next? Level 1 customer support. That's a miserable job, right? You're talking to people over and over all day about here's how you reset your password, here's how you restart your computer, things like that. Or in mortgage loan servicing, right? You're calling in for something that's pretty mundane. It's impossible for a human being to stay pleasant all day long and really like that job. They already have years and years of data that they can just go train these models on, and they can answer most of these basic questions, I think.
Here's where it runs into a problem. Though this is funny. So this will be one of those in betweens. Like, that is a Shangri-La. You're like, oh, good, you know, happy customer service. The problem can be when you start using your AI assistant to deal with this. You have a customer support problem, and it's not going to get tired, and neither is their customer support. So your AI is going to be like, look, I have a problem. Their AI is going to be like, sorry to hear about your problem. This is why it's not our fault. And then it's going to say, no, this is why it is your fault. And they're just going to go back and forth, 80 times during the day, explaining why, no, this is your fault. No, this is your fault, and just in very pleasant, happy way that, nobody's even watching this go round and round.
It's sort of like there's all these applications in the legal profession, right? And so is that going to happen? Are we going to just like send our robots out on the battlefield to duke it out, and then we just figure out who wins at the end of the day? Hey, sorry, do you mind sharing? You texted me a couple of days ago. You just bought a car, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing what you did? I thought that was hilarious.
So, on a personal note, ChatGPT is starting to save me between half an hour to an hour's worth of my time every day.
That's amazing.
At this point, I've trained several different models personally to deal different things. Like, I have conflict resolution that has helped me in a lot of incidents with anger lately.
Emerson GPT for the kids, Dad GPT.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. Health things like understanding, like I recently got my blood work done, and it said everything was good, but there's like 40 different phrases on there, and I just asked it to explain what this means, and how do I raise or lower it, and it shot out really good. Actually, I don't have to contact a professional about that. But let's take, I was getting a new car, all right, and the dealership, of course, everyone hates dealing with dealerships. It's my worst nightmare. I don't want to spend my time doing this. This is stupid. You're going to go back to your manager and round, right? So I emailed them and I said, okay, I'm trading in my car. This is the car I want. Show me the financials of what you're going to give me this car. And they lowball the hell out of me on the car value. I can see online what other people are paying for the car. And I found another dealership that was willing to just buy the car. And I put all the information of emails that I took from both guys into this trained model. I said, okay, what should I say to each one? I copied and pasted via text exactly what it said to each one. And the whole time they're really not dealing with me. They're dealing with ChatGPT, but fine. And so by the end of it, the offer by the other guy was $13,000 higher than the original guy's thing. And the original dealership had raised their offer by $11,000. And even when I got to the dealership, one thing about the new car was incorrect. It just didn't have the seats I wanted. Whatever. Just so I asked ChatGPT what to do, and it told me don't say anything and just sit there. And so I literally just sat there looking unhappy like that, and the guy would like him and Han, and I just didn't say anything. And they went back and he offered me another $1,000, which is great. And then even during the negotiation where they take you in that room and they try to sell you stuff or whatever, I ended up leasing the car rather than buying it, which I never do because I walked through all the money points, all the different things in ChatGPT and which was better for me. And so I ended up leasing the car, and it even showed these huge mathematical equations about why this was the superior choice. So learning how to use this can really, I think, be an amazing help. And
I use it to write rap songs. Like whenever Allie couldn't find her yoga pants the other morning, so I had ChatGPT write a rap about her not being able to. It does a really good job of annoying her. I don't know that it's saving me any time at all, but it's entertaining.
That's awesome. I've used it to like normally I read to my children every night, and so like with my 7-year-old, I was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you a story. Tell me what you want it to be on. And she's like, kangaroo, fairies, blah blah blah. And I just told ChatGPT I want this for my 7-year-old. Write me chapter 1, and it wrote it. And so I read it to her. She loved it because she's like, can I hear another chapter? I was like, write chapter 2. Just like that.
Me and my friends that I grew up with in Dallas, we've started this joke. Threw this out one time. He called it. He said he was going to write his memoirs, the story of my life from birdie to bogey. And now, like as we talk, like all these chapters keep coming up, and so I've started compiling them with the goal of actually having ChatGPT write this book. And here's all the different chapters about it. I already had ChatGPT create the image that we'll use. It's great. It's great. It's hilarious. It's it's so many things. It's amazing.
Yeah. The bad part about some of these, like ChatGPT is obviously the winner right now. I mean, I've tried them all. They're a joke compared to ChatGPT. Just get my personal opinion. No offense to anybody out there doing that. It's nerfed so badly now because they say, they only want to teach it positive things. They don't want this flywheel going around, learning worse and worse things so it doesn't take over the earth and kill us all, So it wants things to be positive, put in a positive spin, and the content being generated and absorbed going in a positive way. The problem is it does interfere with comedy, ideas in an adult way. It's okay to think crazy things and things like that. And ChatGPT is very nerfed in that way. It will not allow you to do things it feels as harmful or not PC or things like that. And so that part is tough. Whereas you try something like Grok on X, it's a lot funnier. I mean, it's really funny. And so if you're writing a rap song, I encourage you to try it on Grok and see what happens.
Funny, I signed up for Grok and I actually killed it after like 2 days because it didn't seem like the quality was anywhere close to ChatGPT. But there's the use case right there. The rap songs, they'll be much better humor.
So how do you do? So let me ask you this while we're talking about that, because one thing about you, Emerson, you seem to always be in the know. You were the first one to tell me about ChatGPT a year ago before it was like a thing. Like, and you were very like, check this out. It's coming. Look at this, look at this, look at this. And I know there's been other things in your field and just in life in general where you seem to be in the know before most people. Is that just because of the business that you're in, or how do you find out about these things first, and how do you stay on top of it, and how do you learn about all these things really before most people?
Yeah, I'd say the honest answer is fear drives me more than anything. I'm in technology, and it's moving so fast. And if I do not stay ahead of this, you will be a dinosaur so quick. And I see it happening with good technology providers or companies that I really liked that were successful 4 years ago that are almost bankrupt or closing now because they failed to pivot or innovate, understanding where the market is going. So if you're in tech, you really got to be looking what's coming up in the next 2 years and investing heavily now. Otherwise, somebody else is going to do it, and by that time, you're going to be so far behind. So I'm looking at it like there's a company in Austin now using AI. It's 10 people, and their valuation is $900 million. 10 people. So it's one of these things that's going to be a downside. A lot of companies are going to be able to do a lot more with less people. We're going to have to figure that out as a society, what that means. But that's what drives me. I'm always thinking about, is my competitor going to do this? If I don't understand this, what's going to happen? So I'm constantly out there playing and goofing around stuff.
Oh, I'm happy. I consider you one of the smartest people I know, and I'm happy. I don't consider myself that, but I'm happy to hear that we do share that underlying paranoia, because I feel like that served me pretty well in my career. And Adam Solomon and I were talking about this, about the very sort of contradictory characteristics that all entrepreneurs have, which is like a lot of optimism and a lot of paranoia. And you have to have those two things that mix together. You have to want to keep going, but then also always be concerned that there's like a knife right behind you in order to be truly successful. So.
Sign of a good entrepreneur. They usually are very scared of their competitors, more so than they need to be in most situations. But that's how I feel, and I think that's a common drive, like you said, that you find.
Well, you're one of the most successful entrepreneurs I know, so it's working. It's working for you. Pivoting for a minute, but I think it's a good pivot point. You talked about company size. You talked about the humans involved. We're not going to see humans go away, I don't think, in our careers, right? We'll see people become much more efficient. We'll see the size of companies get a lot leaner. Agree with you. At some point in time, we have to talk about like UBI, things like that, figure out what people that don't want to work are going to do. But but right now, so culture is incredibly important. And one thing that I have seen with your company is just how really, really intentional you are about your company's culture. Would you mind like kind of walking us through? It sounds like you have been aware of that and been very intentional since the beginning. Would you mind touching on that? Because I think it's applicable to everybody who has a company.
Yeah. And I think if you talk to most CEOs, particularly in tech, this has been number one on what to do since COVID hit. Before COVID, I required everyone to be in the office. I made it the best place to work. I mean, it continues to be a quarterly goal for our company to be the best place to work in Austin, although maybe that's not even relevant anymore, like best place to work in general, but we'd say in Austin. So we made it a really fun culture, an amazing place to come. But the benefits and things like that, we have stacked on to people. I'm very much invested in my personal health. And so I try to get everyone on a track where not only they're making the most money they ever have in their career, but they're improving themselves somehow. And the company pays for everything as long as it's self-improvement, from yoga to continuing education to whatever. If you want to talk about video games, I guess you can talk about it. I don't know. But, as long as it's something that's bettering you, the company is on your side. And we offer a lot of guidance on that. We give the best benefits out there we possibly can. So 401k, health savings, great insurance, all those things that you would find at like a FANG or something like that, but with a small startup kind of environment. That's kind of the combo we have. I also am a very big proponent of leading from the front. So, I have a wife that doesn't care about this internet thing, as she refers to it, and I've got 3 kids that need me. And so, I miss sometimes what I could do 10 years ago, which is I could go to work and work 20 hours straight if I wanted to and really crush it. I can't do that anymore. I've got a family that needs me and other things like that. So finding other smart people to help us get there, but also realizing that I don't make anybody work harder than I do at this company. And I've got all these things. And so I do that. I'm always willing to step up. If there's trash on the ground, I pick it up. That kind of thing, to show people that like, I'm not asking you to do more than me. Just meet me there.
What's interesting about that, so, you're obviously tech focused, but you could just as easily be describing like, a home building company or, somebody who owns a number of restaurants, right? It doesn't seem to change no matter what it is, what service you provide, what product you provide. Leading from the front, caring about your employees seems to matter. It seems to matter a ton. obviously served you incredibly well.
I agree with that. The interesting experience has been now that we went through COVID and everybody was allowed to work from home, and now it's over, right? You can technically argue whether COVID's over, but in Texas it's over certainly. What happens now? Because I tried for a year to get everybody to come back into the office and make this magic happen. And I'm literally sitting there in December on a Monday in 5,000 square feet, and there's 2 other people in the office. And so, I checked with a lot of other smart people I know, other CEOs, and they all are saying the same thing. They're trying to get people to come back in the office. Nobody is coming back. And the 2 CEOs I talked to, including one that's really successful, with 300 people here in Austin, they just embraced it and said they're not coming back. And we're going to lean into remote. And they're really happy right now. So I did that switch for us. And starting this year, everybody is remote no matter what. Nobody's ever required to come in. We're investing a lot of the things that we were investing to make the office great, things like free lunches and on-site masseuses and all that kind of stuff, into how to build the culture remotely. So more kind of like in-person trips, more in-person management meetings once a month kind of thing. But it's still a big problem for me. I don't know what's going to happen to the culture. How do you really get to know people? That sort of thing. And we'll find out what happens with performance.
So it's interesting because we had that same issue in my business prior to COVID. Everybody was in the office. And not only that, I wore a tie every day and met everybody. You need to dress as a banker. We're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, this is a thing. COVID happens. Almost everybody goes home. Some of us stayed in the office. World got a little bit more casual. Not that I watch a lot of Seth Meyers, but you watch him go from wearing a suit and tie every day to wearing a flannel with a roll-up shirt. And I kind of did the same thing. Like, at some point we became a t-shirt company. And then, sometimes I wear a collared shirt or whatever, but keeping that culture together that's been problematic. Being remote has helped us in the sense that we can broaden out where we're hiring folks as far as processors, underwriters, secondary marketing. Like, there's a lot of things that open up where we can hire people, compensation, all of that. But then how do you keep everybody connected? So, on our end, we do virtual company happy hours. We do company trivia. We do a lot of those things. One of the things that I've really tried to mandate, and I've gotten a good amount of success with it, is that people need to video call everybody and not just pick up the phone. So if I call you, we're video chatting unless for some reason it's not working. And when your camera, like, if my camera's on, your camera's on. And if someone else is calling you, like, people need to see each other and at least know who they are. And so that's been one thing that I've really tried to push on this side of things.
That's what Luke mentioned a couple of weeks ago. That engagement happens whenever you can see each other's faces. And so if we're going to be remote and we want to try to stay connected, the video becomes critical. I will suggest. Real estate has always been remote. Like, nobody comes into the office since probably the 80s. It is a bit different because by nature, you're going to be in Austin, so we can set up in-person events as well. We do a lot of AMAs. We bring in, like, if you ever wanted to do an AMA for us, Emerson, I would absolutely love it. Right? You come in, they throw a bunch of questions at you, and you just talk and answer. And that's been something that seems to work. That seems to work pretty well. Yeah, Max has done it for us. He talks about mortgage, things like that. It always surprises me how much people want to learn, and just they get to take a break from work for an hour as well. So
it's a really good idea. We need to get better at stuff like that. It's so easy just to focus on revenue and trying to get things done as opposed to building culture. Mm-hmm. I also concur on the Zoom thing, though. Video is required. Further, we have implemented what's called Zoom protocol, which means we expect it doesn't have to be great, but you have to have a real background, not just an artificial one. And you can't have your bed in the background or something like that. You need to find a place in your house that is appropriate, that looks like you came to work to be business, because it's reflecting on whoever you're talking on the other side of the Zoom. You're representing a company. So, do
you do a dress code or anything like that as well as part of that protocol?
We never had a dress code, as long as it wasn't disruptive.
Right.
No, we haven't done that. But I have asked people to look like get it together a little. That's rare, but every once in a
Yeah,
while,
I've
that's not appropriate. You know,
Yeah,
I've seen that too, where you get on and I'm like, hold on, like if you start talking to other people, like don't look like you just got out of bed. Like you still need to get up and go to work.
even if you did.
You're right.
it doesn't take much. I mean, you don't have to wear pants, right? And you can still look somewhat presentable. So
I married my
Listen,
brother-in-law.
I need you to stand up. Do you have pants on right now? Because I need to see you have pants on.
that's how every meeting begins. Okay, guys, stand up, turn around.
We had an underwriter at the height when it was just hire whoever you could. We had an underwriter who, in the middle of this big underwriting meeting, stood up, not thinking about it, and she was not wearing pants. And all the underwriting department saw that she was not wearing pants.
Emerson, you know the story about the event that Max and I put on where there were 300 attendees on Zoom, right? Didn't we send that to you?
Yes.
The guy didn't know his video was on. He was taking a bath. It was amazing.
Yes. That's my worst nightmare. And it's good to have somebody on the Zoom thing that's like has control that can kick somebody off if that happens. But all the more reason to maybe wear pants and, come a little bit prepared in case you have to get up or something like that. And you don't want to forget that you're on camera, just like you would be in real person.
What's next for Pushnami? You're a huge innovator. What are you guys excited about? What are you working on?
AI has been great. It's helping a lot with our content writing and things like that. We've been expanding it into now publishing content for not only our internal websites, but third parties as well. That's been really exciting. I did not want to get back into email. I already built an ESP, but it's one of these things that like it just won't go away. So we've been expanding that a lot, and we're gonna try and come close to double revenue this year if we really can. It's tough to grow exponentially the more you get big, but we're going to try and take a big swing at it this year.
That's amazing. I mean, those numbers are huge. You're talking about a 9-figure year at that point in time.
Hopefully that would be awesome. And every year I'm at this company, I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening. It's been great.
Well, good luck and congrats.
Well, it's been really awesome.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been really awesome just watching your growth over the last 20 years, but specifically over the last 7 or 8 years, and just what you continue to do and the things that we talk about that you're doing. It's awesome. It's inspiring. I'm feel very fortunate to call you a friend, and a term that me and Eric like to use for each other, which you are definitely a part of, is friend tour.